Early in the evening of April the 25th, 1945, Harry S. Truman took the momentous oath of office as President of the United States. With a world at war, he accepted the gravest responsibility in world history, a new commander-in-chief to lead our nation to ultimate victory. Harry Truman came of sturdy stock. Born in Missouri of pioneer parents, the man who took over the fearsome task of resolving world chaos started life with becoming humility. Near his home in Independence, his experience as a farmer's son on the Missouri frontier set a pattern for the coming world statesman. World War I further inured the future president to the great burden of responsibilities ahead. As an artillery captain, he experienced all the grim impact of battle, leading his men with courage and resourcefulness throughout the bitter offensive in France. His exploits won the applause and respect of the hard-boiled members of the battery who served under him. The 35-year-old veteran emerged with a major's leaves on his shoulders. Elected senator in 1934 after a successful term as a county administrator, Harry Truman began his career in national affairs. His second senatorial term saw him heading the vitally important Truman Committee, watchdog of national defense expenditures during World War II. The committee was his own idea, born of his experience in the first global conflict, and it saved the government hundreds of millions of dollars. His record of achievement in government brought him the Democratic nomination as vice president in 1944. With his practical knowledge of federal administration, he was chosen as running mate for Franklin D. Roosevelt. When he heard that his chief was dead, his simple humanity expressed itself in these words to Mrs. Roosevelt: "What can I do to help?" Harry Truman fell heir to the national and international policies that Franklin Roosevelt had wisely created. Never did an incoming executive confront a more serious and complex situation. His character as a leader and his feeling for teamwork was graphically expressed in his opening message before members of the Congress. His desire to serve his country in all faithfulness was revealed in his first official act.
Even the most experienced pilot cannot bring a ship safely into harbor unless he has the full cooperation of the crew. For the benefit of all, every individual must do his duty.
The final phases of World War II in Europe brought no lessening of the president's problems. The signing of the armistice called forth cheering throngs, hysterically happy that victory in Europe had been won. But Harry Truman had yet to make his humane decision to loose the atom bomb in order to save countless thousands from death in battle on Japanese beachheads. When the Japanese surrendered and hostilities finally ended, the peace which the world hailed so eagerly was yet to be accomplished. Pyramiding the president's tasks with a reorganization of our domestic economy and the building of a system of international relationships to restore world harmony. Post-war chaos, hunger, and disease were still to be overcome. Following in the footsteps of the late Franklin D. Roosevelt, President Truman fostered the United Nations as an instrument for world peace. He became the chief spokesman for global freedom. In the face of tremendous odds, he fought earnestly in the cause of humanity, as his opening address from the Capitol to the United Nations reveals.
You members of this conference are to be the architects of a better world. In your hands rests our future. By your labors at this conference, we shall know if suffering humanity is to achieve a just and lasting peace.
In spite of his preoccupation with world affairs, Harry Truman, returning from the Pan American Conference at Rio, found time to relax with the crew aboard the Big Mo before resuming the cares of state at Washington. No one is happier with just folks than Mr. Truman, whose humble country background endowed him with a deep spiritual integrity. Harry Truman never lost touch with the people of Main Street. To him, it is home, and home for Harry Truman is Independence, Missouri, and the house he earned by hard work. It shelters a family closely knit by affection, common heritage, and aims. Here, daughter Margaret grew to gracious womanhood, encouraged in her talents by understanding parents. Harry Truman is husband and father first and foremost. It is neighbor Truman who is best known in Independence. high office has not changed his everyday relations with the home folks of all races, creeds, and colors. It is the warm understanding he has for just people that makes him conscious of the small businessman's needs. When at home, he always visits his early business associate, Ed Jacobson. The little town of Grandview was always a magnet for the president as long as his mother lived in her modest cottage. Much of the president's character stems from the indomitable will that sustained her into her 90s and from his abiding affection for her. Inheriting, as he did from Franklin Roosevelt, many serious social undertakings, President Truman has always championed the crippled victims of disease. From his earliest National Guard days, President Truman always maintained the closest kinship with his buddies. And when members of Battery D march, even a president walks. Battery members recall vividly that Captain Truman never asked a man to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He has been close to veterans, to their social activities, and particularly to their problems. None of these has he attacked with more determination than the care of disabled men and the efficient functioning of the Veterans Administration. But there is no veteran problem more pressing than housing. This is one of the major reasons for the President calling the 80th Congress back into special session. Earlier, Mr. Truman succeeded in pushing through a veterans' low-cost housing bill that at least partially alleviated the desperate shortage. With the nation needing millions of dwellings immediately, the President labored long and hard for constructive housing legislation. In one of the toughest of post-war problems, homes began to take shape against the twin handicaps of spiraling costs and material shortages. To fight the high cost of living, he offered a 10-point program. As he said, high prices are not taking time off for an election. One of the President's mightiest battles with the 80th Congress came over the Taft-Hartley Labor Act, a measure he promptly vetoed. Courageously, President Truman said, "We must make the government a friendly defender of the rights of all Americans. Again, I mean all Americans." Therefore, he acted on a civil rights program recommended by Bishop Sherrill, head of the Civil Rights Commission. Mindful of the good neighbor policy, the President has made many such warm friends as President Oleman of Mexico. The first to recognize the Provisional Government of Israel, he received from President Chaim Weizmann the sacred Torah presented on behalf of a grateful new nation. No president in American history has ever been faced with the tremendous foreign problems that confront Harry Truman. With Secretary Marshall, he has met the issues with firmness and patience. Two soldiers addressed themselves to the cause of peace. As the red tide rolled over Europe, the Truman answer was immediate. As the Iron Curtain moved forward, the Truman Doctrine came into being. Aid to Greece and Turkey, followed by the European Recovery Program, the Marshall Plan, a program that is checking the red advance on many fronts. American food and economic aid have been paying off for peace. As America eyes the future with anxiety and watches the steadily rising tide of dissension abroad, the nation's leader is confident we can and will win the peace, and he puts his creed in these words.
Peace, my friend, is the goal of my public life. I'd rather have a lasting peace in the world than to be President of the United States.
The story of Harry Truman, farmer, soldier, humanitarian, statesman, hater of war, lover of peace, the President of the United States.